Okay, so welcome everybody to office hours, wherever you are. It's actually the end of Friday afternoon for me because I'm in the UK at the moment. But good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. We've got to the end of another month, and for the last office hours session in the month, we have a theme or a topic. And I'm excited about this one. This is slightly different. Often we talk about some feature of Salesforce that already exists and people have been using, but we're doing a few almost forward-looking statements this week. But I'm not putting up a safe harbor slide, as Salesforce is wont to do, because I think all these features, while they're all quite new, they are actually available. So I'm really excited about the panel we have. Because this is a themed session, our presenters are going to do more talking than usual, but please don't let that stop you asking questions. As usual, please put your questions into chat, and we'll keep an eye on the chat as we go. And if the question comes up or is relevant to what the presenter's been saying, we'll stop and answer your question. Otherwise, we may save some of them for a little later in the session. But as I say, feel free to keep those questions coming or your comments or whatever. So this is going to be a bit of a mixture of general Salesforce stuff and some nonprofit starter pack. We're going to talk about Lightning and the Lightning interface. We're going to talk about engagement plans and levels and deliverables, I think it is, isn't it? But some of the very exciting new objects in the nonprofit success pack. Nearly got wrong. So hang on for that. And then we're going to do a roundup of just a few of the features that came in the Winter 7 release. So we'll come to that at the end. But I think we're going to kick off with Lightning. So Nick, I think you've offered to talk to us a little bit about Lightning and what it is. And some of the things that you like about it. And please, everybody, we're not trying to give you a really comprehensive webinar here. We're not going to talk about everything. I've asked the presenters to keep it quite sort of personal and really to give you an introduction. And we'll try and post resources and that sort of thing so that people can go off and find out more. And as I say, please keep your questions coming. So can I swap over to you as the presenter, Nick?
You bet, yeah.
Okay. There we go.
Perfect. We'll do the obligatory, can you hear me? And at the same time, can you see my screen?
Well, I can. Yes, both.
Yes, and yeah.
Cool. Cool. Awesome. Well, Lightning is, for those that may or may not have even are familiar with Lightning, you may be familiar with Salesforce looking just like this, where you have the tabs going across the top, and you have the recent items, and the interface looks just like this. And this is what Salesforce has called Classic. This is the Classic version, and this is still going to be, most of us are still using this. Today, what I get to talk about is the new shiny object called Lightning. And while it actually may or may not be very new in that, it came out last year at Dreamforce, it was announced. So it's been around for about a year now. But really why I'm even talking about today is that it's taken about a year to get to the point where there's really a lot of great new functionality that exists, where someone could switch over from Classic to Lightning and be able to function and not really notice much outside of the new interface. And so some of the things I kind of want to highlight today are some of the things that came out in the Winter 17 release that have kind of led me to actually start using Lightning internally with my own organization that I work for. And some of these new features are really nifty, and I think they're kind of fun. So the first thing I kind of want to highlight here is just the top the top panel, or the navigation panel that you see here, where it's the it looks very similar to what Classic was. And for those of us that may have switched over to Lightning at some point between last Dreamforce and now, you probably had noticed there was a side panel that was kind of acted as the kind of navigation, how to get between different objects and things along those lines. And why I really like this is because I can not only go to the Accounts tab or the Contacts tab, but some of the things that I really like is there's this little caret now. And why this caret is really cool is that it's a chance to see the recent records as well as potentially related recent related lists that I've looked at. And so, it's a way to kind of get at, I could go to the tab, or it's kind of almost, for lack of a better way to describe it, a sub-tab that exists. So that's where I'm a big fan of this kind of side panel, or not the side panel, but this top panel that exists. One of the other things that has really kind of made Lightning really easy to use in terms of navigating around is what they call the app launcher. For those that are familiar with the old version of Salesforce or for the Classic, you're probably used to remember this little drop down in the upper right-hand corner where if I say selected sales, it would change the tabs that appeared. Well, what the app launcher does in Lightning is pretty much the exact same thing. So if I want to click on this, and I want to change over to, say, that sales tab, assuming I have the sales tab, yeah, here we go. I can click on this, and it'll go right to, here's a little snowman that's loading the page, giving us that nice little head bob and wink. Once this loads, it will go to a new page that will have all of the new tabs. You'll notice opportunities is first versus accounts, leads, contact. It changes those tabs. So it functions pretty much identical to the app launcher in Classic. And you may be going, Nick, all this stuff exists. Is kind of, it seems like it seems odd that you're talking about these. The reason why I'm bringing these up is these didn't exist until the Winter 17 release, and so before this it was a little bit more difficult to navigate around records and things along those lines. The other thing to mention with the app launcher is you're probably familiar in Classic with that little plus sign. So if I didn't see those tabs, I would click the plus sign, and that would label all I could get to a tab that may or not have appeared in the header. In Classic, in Lightning, that appears all the app launcher. And so here's all the apps that I can switch, very similar to the drop-down. And then when I scroll down to the bottom, these are all of the tabs that I can get to. And so if I want to go, say, to dashboards from here, or to affiliations, or things along those lines, that's my quick, easy way to get through there. So those are some cool new tools that have came out in the summer or in the winter release. Some other things that I really think are cool as I switch back to the Success Pack app here are that I have now the ability to inline edit as well as save, not only save a record, but do save and new. So we'll go to my good friend Mickey Mouse here. And previous to this release, and this is for those that haven't seen a detail page for a contact, one of the cool things about Lightning is that I can kind of change the look and feel of things. And so, for instance, right now you're noticing it loads right to the related list, and I can have that happen. I can also tell it to load the details page right away. The activity log, so that tasks, emails that log, things along those lines all appear over here. So it's still the same information, just laid out in a slightly different way. But one of the things that in the Winter 17 that's possible is now that I can do inline editing. So for whatever reason, maybe I want to check that Mickey wants to opt out of email change. I can double click and edit that right on the spot, versus having to go up and click edit, come down to the record, and go from there. So that's a really big feature from there. The other thing that's really nifty in terms of if you're doing a lot of data entry is if I'm adding a new contact, or any record for that matter, which I'll go back to that nifty little caret here. If I can click it, we'll maybe go to leads here, see if I can click it that way. There we go. I'll click, go create a new lead. You'll notice that there's a Save and New button that exists. Now this is again functionality that exists in Classic. It just didn't exist in Lightning yet until Winter 17. So this is another really nifty tool that exists. The other thing that I'm hearing a lot of people talk about are the new notes functionality. And this notes functionality has been in existence for a couple releases, but it's kind of gives us that chance to give it some love. And let's see if I can create a new note from this page, or if I'm still learning how to navigate around in Lightning. So it's kind of fun to give a demo when things don't go just perfect. So let's go to see if I can go to an account and see if I can log a note over there.
I sympathize entirely, Nick. I'm having exactly the same problem. Where is that right now? Yes.
Where is that? Yeah, it's a never-ending item there. Apparently, I don't know where that is, but there is an ability now to add notes, just like we had before. But the cool thing with notes, that the new notes that are existing, that you're able to do those as rich text. And that's really kind of the new thing I wanted to kind of highlight. And granted, it may or not be the, Winter 17. It's been out, I think, for a couple of releases now. But we're able to do that. But I can't showcase that today, and that's all right. The other thing to mention, and actually this is something that I'm really starting to enjoy with navigating around Lightning, is the search functionality. And so in Classic, what's kind of cool, I can type in, say, Nick, and the search will search all, different objects, files, things along those lines. And it's pretty cool. I like that. But I really like the new search because the main thing it does that the other search didn't is that it does reports as well as dashboards. And so I can go and do a search right up here, so it makes it even more of a global search. And so I can go right here and find, say in this case, the campaign household mailing list. And so it's a great way to kind of keep making search more front and center in terms of how do we navigate around Salesforce in a meaningful way. So that's one of the things I really enjoy.
Oh, I hadn't tried that. That's very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's that's kind of one of the things I really enjoy. And let me see if I can do another thing here. I haven't fully made sure I got the click pattern down on this one, but I know there's now a way to add or run reports and add reports to campaigns, or those contacts to a campaign. And I believe it should be very similar. Maybe I don't have the right click pattern down. But that's now an ability that I can, just like in Classic, when I'm running a report, I can add people to a campaign very easily. And so if I want to have a list of people instead of having to go one by one, that's now a functionality. In terms of what there's probably a plethora of things that I haven't covered today, and the main thing I want to mention is that in the release notes there are two really important links that I'm starting to look at, and actually one link is ironically more than the other. So there's a list of all the features that exist in Lightning right here. The feature that I end up going to a lot more is what's not available yet, and it's very much kind of a, hey, is Lightning ready for me yet? And for some orgs that answer may be yes. For other orgs it may be a no. And a lot of times when I'm trying to figure out, even for myself, can I use Lightning, I end up going to this what's not available in Lightning and finding some of the key items. So for instance, Lightning experience considerations for reports and dashboards. here's some things that really help kind of delineate, hey, what is possible or what's not possible yet. And if there's some things that you go, I really need that, Lightning may not be ready for, or may not be right for you at this point in time. This Lightning is going to continue to be more of a focus in future releases. So, Spring 17 is going to have a lot more features that probably existed in this What's Not Available list. And there'll be even more that come in summer and winter next year. So keep checking this list and kind of see what those non-negotiable things are. And maybe, whether it be now or next year or 2 years from now, even Lightning may be the right thing for you. So I'll make sure to post these links, or I'll post this main link onto the chat feed here. Just, do we want to open up to questions now, or do we want to wait? Caroline, what are you thinking would be best here?
Oh, absolutely. I'm hoping that there are questions. It's interesting, Nick, while we wait. On that list, is there anything that's particularly happened in Winter 17 that you've kind of breathed a sigh of relief and gone, oh, finally, yes, I can do that?
Ironically, the big things that I covered today, like the inline editing, that was a big thing for me. What I ended up realizing when I tried to flip the switch back in spring this year, and got to the point where it was taking me about twice as long to do things such as editing a record. And specifically the inline editing was a big thing for me. So knowing that came out, so it's not only inline editing on a record, but also in list views, that was a big thing for me.
How about anybody else? Yeah, it's great. How about anyone else who's on the call? Is anybody else using Lightning? Found any things that you really like, or things that you're maybe missing at the moment? And there is a question here: is Nonprofit Starter Pack Lightning available in the App Exchange to install? It's not really an installation, is it, Nick?
No, it's not really installation. There's some steps, and I can find that article to post out. There's some steps to turn on Lightning in your organization. And if you look at Starter Pack or Success Pack as a whole, there's a lot of functionality that is built on the Lightning platform. So for instance, the nonprofit settings page is built on the Lightning platform. And even you'll notice here over the next couple months, many of the help and support articles will now be on the Lightning side of it. So there's not really anything that we need to download from the App Exchange. It's more flipping some switches on the back end of Salesforce. So I'll find that link and post it to the chatter feed for us.
Because I think that's the thing, isn't it? That, it actually, Lightning affects every app that you have installed. Could be the Nonprofit Success Pack, could be a whole load of other things. And Lightning is going to change the look of everything, isn't it? It's not like you have some apps that will remain in Classic and some that will be in Lightning. They'll all change.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a plethora of Trailhead trails that have really focused on Lightning and trying to figure out when is Lightning ready for me, how do I flip the switch, what's possible in Lightning, that are really cool. And so I'll try to I'll find the module that has all this good stuff, and that'll be what I actually post in the feed.
Wonderful, thank you. Are there any other Lightning questions at the moment? And one of the changes that will happen is that I believe sometime in November, all new trials of the Nonprofit Success Pack will have Lightning already switched on. I believe that's one of the changes. For anyone who already has it, you can choose when you do the change. But if you know anybody who's just starting out on their journey with the NPSP, from November they will get the new version. So, but thank you, Nick. That's great and really helpful. And if anyone has any more questions, if anything occurs to you, then please post to the chat. And thank you, Steve. Yes, you you had Lightning installed as you signed up, which is great. Now, I've been reminded in the background here that I should probably just also point out that there is really no difference between Starter Pack and Success Pack, apart from the word. And you'll find us all. Some of us are getting better than others at not saying Starter Pack. That's just a change of name. It doesn't actually change the functionality or the look of it or anything at all. So if you hear Nonprofit Success Pack, it's exactly the same as the Nonprofit Starter Pack. However, the Nonprofit Starter Pack, I think the idea is that it has graduated beyond being simply a starter pack. And I think there are some amazing features. I'm leading into you, Brian. There are some wonderful things which I think now do take NPSP another level from being a starter pack, and refinements and things which really are much more about setting you on a successful path. So is that a good introduction, Brian, to kind of get on into?
Yeah, I'll take it.
You'll take it. Okay.
No, that was good. Go ahead and make me presenter, and I'll show my screen. We'll talk about some of those new features. But yeah, as Caroline was saying, you've seen the new name, Nonprofit Success Pack. And although that is just a name, it is indicative of the kind of refocus, I believe, that the Salesforce.org has had around the value of this tool, this application. And it used to be the Nonprofit Starter Pack, and that created, I believe, if just anything, an impression that it might be for starter organizations or that it's only for a specific kind of class of nonprofit, when in fact, like the whole time it's been in existence, it's been used by a variety of organizations of different sizes and complexity. We've worked with organizations that are quite small, less than 5 staff, raising $1 million a year, and use the Nonprofit Starter Pack as a great tool to power their fundraising efforts. We've also worked with organizations that are in the $50 million a year range, are international, and have a database of 6 million people, and use the Nonprofit Starter Pack to manage their digital marketing and fundraising. And that's all been going on for a long time. But I feel like what's happening here is the platform itself is getting recognized for its versatility, and that little name change, I think, is going to be helpful for its own brand, so that people can, from the get-go, understand that this is not an entry-level product, or it's not necessarily an entry-level product. It can be applied to some pretty advanced situations, which gets us to some new features that they have added, which are pretty darn cool features. We're going to cover engagement plans, and to a more minor level, there's a new feature called Levels. They do go hand in hand. I will point out that if you want more information on these, you should follow the instructions that were published, and I'll just pop those onto my screen here. Hopefully everyone's seeing my screen. This is part of the Power of Us set of documentation, create and manage engagement plans. Caroline, are you seeing this?
Yes, we are seeing it, which gives me a good opportunity also to blow your trumpet and to say that Brian is the author of this documentation, so he really does know what he's talking about.
Yes, I authored this one. My colleague, Melissa Barber, authored this other one about creating and managing levels. So interestingly, it's always fun authoring documentation because you get down into the weeds of it. Well, I went ahead and set up engagement plans in this test account here following my own documentation, and I'm happy to say that it worked. So you might have struggles. I would love to hear if you have struggles, and we can enhance that documentation, but it worked for me. So let's cover just a little bit about engagement plans. Overall, the idea behind it was spawned years ago with this application from Salesforce's Salesforce Labs called Action Plan. And really it's a way of defining a series of actions that you want to automatically apply to a record. So, take a scenario like a major donor. If that gift comes in, your development team might have defined that we're going to steward that donation through a 12-month cycle of various activities, starting with some heavy acknowledgments and heavy thank yous and phone calls, and then maybe culminating with some invitations to view the program, and then followed by some further solicitation towards the end of the year. That series of steps you can create into an engagement plan template. And I've gone ahead and done this for this particular example. The instructions this is not going to be necessarily a how-to. I really just want to show you the vision of how this could work. And this is what you'll get to once you follow those before mentioned documentation. But this is essentially a plan. I called it the Major Donor Stewardship Plan. It has a series of tasks. All of these tasks are quite literally Salesforce tasks. So if you're trying to figure out what does this do in my system, it creates Salesforce tasks. I'll show you that in a second. The full list, though, is basically we start off with a personal email acknowledgement, and that happens immediately. We call and thank 7 days later, 7 days after the email acknowledgement goes out. And then we have a series of other tasks around adding them to the honor wall, some handwritten notes, some meetings, and further solicitation. This series of tasks is essentially waiting for us to assign it. So if I have a new, say, family that we want to assign this to, the Barber household here, I've added engagement plans as a related list, and I simply come in and I pick my engagement plan. In this case, we pick the Major Donor Stewardship Plan. I hit save, and after it's done thinking, it's actually going to deploy my plan for the Barber household. So here we are back at the Barber household. We're on the account itself, and you can see in terms of open activities, we've got that whole series. Looks like I've got a question here. Do you have to be on the NPSP to use engagement plans? Yes, it is part of the NPSP, so it's baked in. So when you install the NPSP, this is one of the features you get.
And there was also a how many days after can you set the field to? That must have been just a little earlier.
Oh, I didn't see that. Okay. I don't know of a limit, but this one here is set 7 days after. And maybe I can set it to 1,000 days after. Oh, that number's too large. Interesting. Good question, whoever asked that question. Except it's somewhere between 500 and 1,000 apparently, and I don't know the answer to that. But
it feels like if you're going 500, which is what, nearly 2 years away, you're probably not needing to do solicitation, are you? It's kind of. Thank you for the question, Ben. Thanks for checking.
This feature can be used for major donors, corporate sponsors. It can be used for quite literally anything. You can attach it to not just accounts or contacts. You can attach it to opportunities, campaigns, even custom reports, custom objects. So a campaign, you could set up if you have recurring events, and in order to execute on one of those events, you follow a 14-step plan. Well, you could set up a engagement plan around that kind of event execution, and then essentially assign the engagement plan to your event object. A lot of people use campaigns. I don't have an example for that, but just an idea of how else you could use this. The feature that they also released that goes hand in hand with it is this feature called Levels. And once it's set up, you get something that looks a little like this if you're using it for financial tracking. In this case, we have a bronze, silver, and gold level, and you can see there's a minimum and maximum amount. So if someone gives within a certain range, then they're going to land themselves within these levels. And I've got it set up on the account. It's looking at a field called largest amount. So if I go back to, say, the Pickett household, and where's my largest amount? Last gift, largest gift. So it's this one, and this is an NPSP roll-up field. Essentially, what it does is it looks at this roll-up field and says, okay, if someone has given $7,500 or if it finds $7,500 in this field, it's going to automatically give that person the level that is appropriate. Now, this is where things get fun. I'm going to go ahead and add a donation here and see if I can trigger that. Put it today. We'll mark it as closed one, posted. Come on. And let's go back to the Pickett household, and it did not happen because it did not roll up. Maybe because I made it a general gift, and maybe I need to make it a donation. Either way, the feature functionality of setting that level is important, so it's a label on the account itself. So you could pull up at any time, you know, show me all my gold donors. That's helpful for reporting purposes. The additional functionality, I did set it, and I still didn't hit that level. So my settings must not have been done appropriately. Or actually, oh, you know what? If I'm recalling, the levels itself might not get set right away. Let me go to my NPSP settings. I think this is a nuance that I had forgotten. But I believe it might happen on a schedule.
Yeah. And
yes, Pierre. I see your comment here. Batch job. Pierre made a comment. Is there a batch job related to levels? I believe that was either a really good question or a very kindly worded bit of advice. So regardless, Pierre, thank you. Bulk data processes.
Yes, there are various questions. They've asked, Pierre said it was just a question.
Yes, thank you, Pierre, once again.
Levels are part of membership. You could certainly use them for setting membership, but they are a separate feature, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
In that they don't have to be
yes.
related to a membership record type, your opportunity record type, do they? They can. Sorry, keep going.
So here we have the silver level has been appropriately assigned based on that batch, which is scheduled. You actually don't need to go run it, but it'll just happen on a regular basis. But if you wanted to kick the system and have it run, you could go to the settings page like I just did. The additional thing that you can do here with these levels is you can actually assign them to a template. And by doing so, it will automatically push or really assign a template to the record. So it's like the full cycle. So if someone hits the level of silver, and then boom, your team automatically is assigned this major donor stewardship process. So you can really pair these up well so that the system itself, Salesforce, is keeping watch over your donor base. And when when people hit a certain level, not only does it label them correctly at that level, but it also assigns the appropriate set of actions. All right, and that's the engagement plan and levels in a nutshell. And once again, the documentation on this is pretty good. It is fresh, so if you do find any issues with it, do raise a hand and we'll improve that documentation. But the documentation itself should get you through setting it up and deploying it for your organization. Any other questions on this? I did want to just touch on the newly renamed deliverable object as well. That one's going to be quite a bit quicker, but any questions left?
Yeah, so a couple of things actually, Brian, and in fact some of the questions are going to take us into the deliverables, which is great. I also, I have heard from Cherise that she's not able to join us. So if you want a bit more time to talk about deliverables, you're very welcome. I think that because there are a lot of questions about engagement plans in detail, I'm probably going to ask you back on another session next year, and we'll do it just on engagement plans.
Okay.
But if you'd like to, if you'd like to talk a little bit about the deliverables objects, that would be great.
Yeah, so the deliverable object, let's go to it. It's been around for a while, but it was under this name, a different name. It's a custom object, so if we have some admins and they want to see the guts of this, it is a custom object here, and it's called Deliverables. But you'll also notice that it has some legacy names. It was originally released with the name called Grant Deadline, and that is because it was primarily thought of as a tool for organizations that have applied for and received grants. And there's certain major milestones when you're pursuing a grant, like sending out the letter of intent, the LOI, applying, finishing your application, and then once the grant is received, you have various reports that are due. And so what it is it's a child object to basically any of your opportunities. You have to add it to the layout. It's now called Deliverables, so when you add it to the layout, it's here. And the record itself is pretty simple. And basically what you're saying is, here are my major milestones related to this donation. And you can give it a name, call it the final report. There's a type field too. I particularly like the type field, especially when you're dealing with things that are relatively standard. If you have a standard response that you're providing to these contributions. This one, duplicating it as final report, but whatever. You have a due date. So they'll, if it's a grant, obviously they're going to give you a due date. Maybe it's October 1st, 2017. And typically, if you have 3 or 4 of these, you're just going to hit save and new. I'm just going to go ahead and hit save, get us back to that opportunity. And so here you can see this is one of our major deliverables. Now, you kind of might want to be asking, like, well, what about tasks? You just covered tasks. Why would I create a deliverable when I could just create a task and assign it to someone? Well, a deliverable tends to be something that is a little more milestone-y. Meaning, like, it's not just a task. It could be that in order to create this deliverable, you actually need to go back and forth with people. You need to create drafts. You might have multiple tasks. So, for example, this deliverable final report might be, someone has to gather the financials, financial report. And so you can assign that to someone other than yourself if you need to. And such, and so there could be 3, 4. You might even use chatter to go back and forth to create this. So it becomes this kind of milestone that everyone is coordinating their efforts around.
Laurel,
and then one.
Sorry, I was going to say Laurel Taylor's actually posted a comment. She said she used Process Builder to auto-create 3 main deliverables every time a grant opportunity record type is created, which takes some of the tedium out of it for us. That sounds cool.
Yeah, that's nice. Perfect. Yeah, and again, it becomes, if you can standardize like what your process is around these opportunities, then you can start to do things like use a process builder to automatically assign those. So we've covered it. This is obviously a good tool for a grant, which is why they originally named it Grant Deadline. But the actual format, the actual kind of structure of what you're doing is also applicable to other things. A corporate sponsorship, for example, is going to have potentially a set of promises that you made. It could be that you're going to send out a press release. It could be that you're going to include some other benefits related to their sponsorship of the event. Could be you're going to send them a final report to say, hey, look how successful this was, and look at the media coverage we all got. So that sort of thing is also perfect for the deliverable object. So this being an example here of a $25,000 sponsorship from a corporation, here you have some deliverables related to sending a press release, a final sponsorship report, and anything else you might have. So I see this as being very applicable to corporate relationships as well as major donors. When I was a development director at a nonprofit here in San Diego, for our major donors, we did like to send a kind of a 6-month report and an annual report. And it wasn't as formal as you'd get with a foundation, but it was still an effort to engage them with the progress that's being made with their contribution. And so the deliverable object will be a perfect type of a method of classifying and kind of keeping track of that responsibility you set for yourself.
Sorry for that's great. And sorry for the pause there. I was scrolling back through some questions to see if there was anything else. There was, I think, Justin asked us a question which goes back to the engagement plans, a bit more about sort of use cases. And what are some good ways that the engagement plans could be used? Because I mean, they're obviously great, I think, for major gift solicitation, but it doesn't have to, like I think you mentioned, it doesn't have to be just used for that, does it?
No, the engagement plan is really a structure, and if you can identify that you have a process that involves, you know, basically performing a series of tasks, call them tasks, because that's what Salesforce calls them. We'll call them tasks. If you have any process that is consistent and you want to, and you've basically decided, like, this is the way for us to get the best result in a general sense when, you know, when we have this kind of happening at our organization. You know, any of those are a good model for an engagement plan. So we did mention, obviously, like a major gift comes in and you want to steward that donor. That's a great example. You could even do something like a new sponsor relationship where you've just been kind of introduced to a sponsor. You might have a plan associated with securing that sponsorship. This could be like pre-receiving the money. You know, away from money, I did mention before, like an event. When I was again, as development director of that whole organization, we did a series of regional events there was a couple swimming events that were like peer-to-peer fundraising events, but we did a lot of actual like major donor-esque parties where you really are doing small kind of friend raisers to introduce yourself to new potential donors. In order to pull those off, like there was a good series of steps that had to happen over the course of 3 months. And if you're doing 6 or 8 of those a year, you know, oftentimes it's a little hard to tell where you're at with each of them. So a system like this where you could define this is our steps to be sure that we're on track to pulling that event off could be put into an engagement plan and real quickly assign when a new event like that is planned. Anyone else have any ideas for engagement plans?
I see that Laurel again has posted a really good tip about tasks and data storage. And let's see if all of you can see it. Consideration that tasks are going to eat up your data storage fast. So they're going to use engagement plans, but she's got a very clear plan for deleting them. Laurel, are you on? Do you have a microphone? Can you talk to us? Do you want to tell us a little bit more about what you're doing?
Sure. It's just. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. So in our org, we have a lot of opportunities. So we are already hovering very close to our 1 gig, and we know we're going to have to go to 2 gigs at some point. And we realized that the thing that was gobbling up our data storage the most was tasks, because, I mean, at least in one case, we opted to use campaign members instead of tasks because campaign members take up less storage than tasks. So ultimately for us, we just decide that there's a shelf life for tasks, and then we delete them after a certain point, and that really helps keep our data manageable, because the trade-off is, oh, we're never going to use tasks because our data storage will go away quickly. That doesn't seem reasonable because these engagement plans and other tasks are super useful, but it just means looking at your data and having a regular maintenance schedule to get rid of things you don't really need anymore.
Yeah, indeed. I know a number of email service providers actually will use tasks to indicate when an email has been sent out. They might even log a separate task when someone has opened it, and a third one when someone has clicked on a link. So those integrations, if that's happening, you're ending up with tens of thousands of tasks being created on a very regular basis. And that kind of stuff is pretty low value. I think you're using tasks to say, we had a great meeting, this is what we talked about, the person was interested in this. That's a very high value node. And so when you come to that point where you're looking at cleansing the task and an activity table, you need to understand like what is getting stored there so you can retain that stuff that does have value over many years, as opposed to something that is low value as someone clicking on an email.
A question about whether engagement plans do any leverage events at all, or can be placed on a user's calendar. Can you create calendar tasks off of them?
They don't at this point. They just create Salesforce tasks, and Salesforce tasks is this task list. It's not actually going to put it on a calendar for a particular time, which is what the events do.
Got it. Thank you. Thanks for that. Oh yes, or you could calendar it. I suppose now these days, if you were on Lightning, could you calendar them anyway? Has anybody tried that? Because that is supposed to be one of the features of Lightning, isn't it? Nick, have you tried calendaring different objects?
I haven't. It's a really cool feature that I know exists, but I haven't actually. So.
Yeah, it's an interesting, yes, because Laura's just suggesting you could use the calendar anything app. But I think if you that there is a feature in Lightning now, isn't there, that you can make a calendar of particularly things like opportunities or campaigns have calendar views. So that might be worth experimenting with as well. We've had, as I say, because I'm sorry that Cherise isn't able to join us. We're not. She was going to talk about a few specific features in Winter 17, and she's pointed out that there are some webinars and things coming up. So that's great. And thank you, Justin, for posting the resources about Trailhead. I wonder, we have a few more questions about Lightning, so if you don't mind, maybe we'll go back to those. But I see that there are quite a few other knowledgeable people on the line. So if anybody has found any other features in Winter 15 that we haven't talked about, or there's anything else that maybe they heard at Dreamforce, or they've heard some news about that they're excited about, then it'd be great to find out what everybody else is thinking. But otherwise, yeah, there seems to be some conversation going on here about the speed of Lightning, the browser speed. Nick, what have you been finding in that?
Yeah, the speed's actually kind of interesting. It is not so much Lightning whatsoever. I was noticing in the feed there a few people were mentioning how it seems like there was a lag to go between pages, and you see that snowman that does that little wink, and after you see it so many times, you think it's mocking you, and that's kind of the nature of the beast right now. There's an idea that's posted on the chatter feed here for an idea exchange that is really all about making Lightning faster. And ultimately, the more votes on that one, the louder the voice that we can make on something that we all would hope would be kind of standard functionality, but it isn't fully yet. Why is it so slow? I think it's mostly having to do with the kind of underlying technology that Lightning is built on. If you look at kind of how the classic user interface is built, it is built on Lightning's built on a completely different platform, if you will, and so I think they're trying to fine tuning that whole realm.
Oh, that's a shame. It's maxing out your CPU, Steve. And it's true. I think I've come across people who were using managed packages that had a lot of visual force in them, and they found the same problem with speeds, I think. A lot of it is, yes, there's a lot of stuff in that user interface, isn't there, Nick? And it, yes, kind of ironic we'd have the issue with a platform called Lightning. I'm sure the irony has not been lost on the product managers. Yes, I'm sorry about the every page load, Steve. That's hard. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I was just sort of mentioning, in terms of, Lightning, there's a lot of new features coming out, and, kind of to my previous point, Lightning may or may not be ready for you right now, and page loads for things like that, that is a big deal. And so, there's a lot of orgs that I know of, or even myself, that's kind of going, I'm going to wait a little bit longer to start using Lightning for things like that. So it doesn't mean you have to switch today to Lightning, and just know that this stuff is out there.
Justin, do you said about anybody loving the Kanban boards? Do you want to explain what they are and why do you love them? Justin, have you got it? Yes.
You hear me okay?
Yeah.
That's my audio. So so the difficulty that I have, honestly, is trying to keep up with the releases and package them in solutions for the nonprofits that I work with. So trying to say, hey, you could use this for this, this, or this. And Kanban, for me, is for those of you that are like super productive and love to sort of say, hey, I need a whiteboard with a bunch of different pieces on it, and I need to move them from started or brainstorming to parking lot to working to on hold or blocked to finished. So a Kanban board is a typical productivity model that some other apps use, but Salesforce has built that into leads and campaigns, and sometimes it just sort of helps your end users think about their work differently. So I'm looking at like the low-hanging fruit for a lot of these releases, something that I can install for a client in one phone call. They can start using it and find success with it. So Kanban boards just came out with Winter 17 for leads and campaigns specifically.
Yeah, because they were on opportunities before, weren't they? That was, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Nick, you haven't got a page with a Kanban board. Could we swap back and just show people what it looks like?
I don't have any set up, but
Okay.
let me quick see if I can create one for us.
Okay. So, while you're on the line, yes. So, anybody else? Is there anything? Has anyone come back from Dreamforce and tried experimenting yet with anything like Einstein, which was talked about at Dreamforce lot? Or are there any Quip users out there? Or anything else that maybe you found and you got very excited about? This is an open to the audience. Anything that anyone's seen or heard about and would love to mention in chat. Leslie, no, the Kanban isn't an extra cost. It is just available in Lightning. If Nick is ready, we'll
got
show
one.
you.
Yeah, I got one.
Yeah.
It was a lot easier to set one up than I anticipated. So.
Okay, making you the.
I'll share it out real perfect. So in the.
I think, Nick, we lost your audio. Nick, we lost your audio.
Okay, who wants to give a shot at narrating what he's doing?
Absolutely. I can hear you, Justin. All right. We'll try and talk through what Nick is doing.
Justin, you're less familiar with this. What's Nick doing?
Goodness me. So he probably went to the Setup tab, initially set those up. The list view, or the view you see in front of you, is probably set by the side of his screen, which is a set filtered group of opportunities. And as he is looking at those, he has the option to sort of grab an opportunity record, which is the Harry and Sally Walker household. Oh, we just lost him. Maybe he's trying to reconnect. But the intent is being able to sort of have a visual display of, gifts, grants, and in sort of a team display, or even for a productivity mode, be able to say, hey, here's the 5, 20 opportunities that I need to worry about the most for the next month or the next week or two, and I'm going to prioritize them and work on them together with a group of people through a Kanban board. And you can isolate and identify which fields you want to show on that little card, sort of like think of it as an index card or a Kanban card, and then drag and drop them from stage to stage. So you can drag them from a prospecting stage to an estimating stage to a signing stage to a closed loss or a closed won stage. Updates the stage field value by dragging it from one column to another column.
Yeah.
That was the long short of it.
Yes, and that's why it works really well, isn't it, for both opportunities and leads, because you take things through a series of stages, and you can see with that going from prospecting to pledged, etc. And with leads, I guess, I don't know, just are you taking them through sort of the kind of a sort of lead scoring, essentially, moving towards a conversion?
Yeah, I think so. I think opportunities are such a value-based record that a lot of people use them for values, whether it's grants, major gifts. Leads and campaigns are a little differently, but it gives if you're doing campaigns for a marketing manager, or if you're doing sales development, like business development, like you're just making a lot of calls to leads, maybe the leads that have the most activity, you sort those first, and you decide to focus on them differently. Or leads that are in a geographic area, sort of let you zero in on a certain subset of records and then isolate how you're going to work with those. That's my best guess. I am not formally using it yet, but now that I saw it on here, I'm going to say I want to use it.
Fantastic. Well, we'll have to get you to come back in a future week and tell us all about it. So, fantastic. Michael, cool things learned at Dreamforce. It's not new, but the functionality and ease of building out a console is pretty fab. Michael, I think you've just volunteered yourself for a previous session, for another session, actually. And yes, there is indeed an excellent blog post from Christine Carter about setting up the Salesforce console. So catch that and come back another time. Thank you very much, everybody. We've got to the hour. I'm sorry we had to kind of change that session a little bit on the fly, but it's been great. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Justin, for stepping in and filling in some time. I will post the recording of this to the Power of Us Hub, and we'll be back again with a general office hours session next week. And thank you, everybody, for the great questions and for picking up and answering some things in the chat. So have a great weekend, everybody, and see you in the Power of Us Hub.
Thanks, Caroline. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.